It's so important to be honest, and it's so easy to be self-deceptive. It's one thing to say that you don't tell other people lies, and yet we really are good at telling ourselves lies in life. Once we stop, then a lot of doors open up. We start to be able to articulate our feelings better. We start to be able to have a better grasp of reality. And when we do, then we lose the things that hold us back. We're able to move forward in a way that we weren't able to before. But that's a really hard thing. It's hard to get to that point because we tend to be really, really determined to believe things that are harmful to us. We have that sense that perhaps an old relationship will wind up working out. We'll wind up being able to get that relationship that wasn't ever going to work out or turn out to be anything. We can maybe get that to work out. So we hang on to a bit of hope. And what happens? Well, you don't have the ability to let other things into your life because you're hanging on to that old thing that's not actually going to bear fruit in your life. It wasn't ever going to bear fruit in your life, but you want to hang on to it. You want to live in the past. And as long as you're doing that, you're never going to be able to really get the kind of experience that you want out of your life because you're hanging on to this false narrative, you know? And that's not just relationships, it's all sorts of things. It might be your finances. It's that sense that you didn't want to really acknowledge that you're poor, so you'd rather look for ways to feel rich. You go to the Starbucks and you go on a road trip somewhere and you're always off doing something, and when you get a little bit of cash on you, then you go and you waste it on something to make yourself feel a little bit better and get the dopamine from going on a shopping trip. And you're not doing yourself any favors, but you're kicking the ball down the road, you're kicking the can down the road rather, and you're just always having something that distracts you from the truth. And the truth is that you need to have a conference hour with yourself without any answers and without any excuses, and to just really honestly say, here's where I'm at. This is the truth. This is what's going on with me. This is my life. And once you do that, then it starts to be easier, because then you're not trying to figure out how to interact with reality and all the things that life requires you to do and be, while also having blinders on and burying your head in the sand as much as physically possible all the time. It's really hard to do that, though, because we don't want to face things that are unglamorous, things that really cast ourselves in a poor light. We'd rather just not think about it. And that's our problem. We have this desire to self-deceive, and if we're not careful, we can get so good at deceiving ourselves that after a while we believe our own false narratives, and we don't even know that they're not true. It's like this guy that goes out and gets a new pickup truck because he feels like he's going to look cool at driving it, and so he spends $70,000 that he probably shouldn't be spending. And then he actually feels like he's part of the upper middle class or something because he's driving this vehicle. He's convinced himself that this thing is making him rich, when in reality, not getting it would have been what would have made him richer, if anything was going to make him richer. And this thing he's doing is actually making him poorer. Maybe hanging on to hope for that old relationship that isn't ever going to be something that could bear good fruit, or isn't ever going to be something that's going to come back and actually work out for you. You hang on to that, and the reality is, not only is that not a good thing, it's also something that's going to prevent the good fruit of positive relationships maybe growing in the empty space that you'd have if you let go of those things that are not healthy, or rather are not true. Then there's things like politics. We have this tendency to have all sorts of passions directed toward who we want to win the next election, or what side we identify with and who we think is right. And the truth is, you can't ever find the right side in politics. There is no right side. There's a lot of different perspectives and opinions on both sides of every aisle. And then there's usually a third perspective that's off in some direction that's not really binary, that's not one side or the other. And there's all this different stuff to consider. And the truth is always remarkably ambiguous. The truth is not what you want it to be. It's not in line with any one particular narrative. The truth is a composite of different ideas that requires you to stop being extremely dogmatic and acknowledge that you aren't really right in the entirety of anything. And you have to surrender these notions of absolutism. That sense that I'm going to find the right religion, the right political view, the perfect game to play. It's manifest in so many different aspects of our life. This determination, I'm going to find the right thing and I'm going to just go whole hog into it. And then life's going to be good. And it is, until you realize that that's not the whole picture. Or maybe you're just unable to look at all the variety in the world because you're so determined not to give up on something that's actually toxic in your life. Maybe there's that game that you've played for the last 10 years of your life and you're really kind of addicted to the thought of playing the game, but you really hate the game now. You don't have fun. You just log in because you've been doing it for a long time and all your friends know you're a fan, and you can't just give up now, right? So the copium is strong and you're just hanging on. You're not having fun. It's not a good experience, but you're still there. You're still giving it the old college try, giving it the best you've got to convince yourself that you're having fun, when in reality you're not having fun. The truth is, you probably should just log off and call it a day. But you don't want to do that, because doing that would require that you acknowledge the truth. That you spent a lot of time doing something that you didn't enjoy, and you don't want to acknowledge that, because that forces you to basically say that you wasted your time. So instead of acknowledging that you wasted your time, you instead continue to waste more of it, because it's so inconvenient to acknowledge the truth that something doesn't bear good fruit in your life and you actually need to let it go. Or maybe it's the marriage that's, not going well, and then you kind of come up with all the reasons why maybe it could be fixed, it could be resolved, it could be made better, and you ignore the fact that there's fundamental things that are wrong, things that are beyond your control. You can't do anything about them. But it's easier to pretend that they are simpler than what they really are, and it's not really it's not what you think it is. It's something else. The truth is, things usually are exactly what they look like they are. If somebody says that they care and then they do things that prove that they don't care, if they make promises and then they violate those promises over and over again, yeah, you can make excuses and you can say that they just have their reasons. And it's true, they do. You should always forgive people. But it doesn't change the fact that if somebody wanted to be different, they would be different. And if you want them to be different, then you're kind of playing a loser's game, because at the end of the day, things are going to be what they are, no matter how much you believe that there's something different. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. You can continue to decorate that pig all you want, put the lipstick on it. But the pig is not going to be a person. No amount of decorating the pig and putting it in people's clothing is going to make it a person, because that's not what it is. And if you think it's going to be something it isn't, then that's your problem. That's you. That's not the pig's fault. It's your fault. And we do that a lot. We do it with our politics, with our faith, with our finances, with our friends, with our relationships. We spend our lives lying to ourselves. Now, if you reckon honestly and you say, okay, here's the truth, and you just say, let it be what it is. Let it be exactly the way it falls, you know? Don't try to put an interpretation on it. Don't try to assign a way to take something bad and paint it as good, or take something false and paint it as true. Just let it be what it is. Don't hate it for being what it is, but just let it be what it is. Then you can accept it for the truth of what it is, and you don't try to satisfy your needs in looking to things that are incapable of being that. Then you are free. You're free to move on and find other new ways to create guards for your future security and to make your life better. And it's hard to take a just and regular account of your life and just say, you know, this is the truth of where I'm at. Even if it's not flattering and it's not what I want it to be, this is the truth. But there is a liberty that comes in that as well. And I think all of us know what it is that we lie to ourselves about. It's like when I wasn't doing well with my finances, and then I just didn't want to check the mail because I knew there might be a bill in there. And, you know, I didn't want to think about that, so it was easier just not to check the mail. I'll just drive by the mailbox today and not think about it, you know? I know I'm not alone. A lot of us are that way. And then at some point it catches up, because the truth always does catch up. The truth always comes out. You can sit there and you can look at the sunrise slowly coming, and night slowly starts turning into dawn, and you can pretend that you're not seeing the sky get bright over there. You can do that. It'll work for a little bit. It'll work when you're just, you know, right at the very beginning of the dawn. Yeah, you can pretend that you're imagining something. It's not really. But the truth is, the night's coming to an end and the sun's coming up, and it's going to come out. And after a while, you aren't going to be able to ignore it. You're not going to be able to deny it anymore, because it's going to be the middle of the day. It's going to be lunchtime, and sun's going to be way up, high noon. And there's no way you can say at that point that it's still the middle of the night and the sun's not coming up. Because at some point, it becomes self-evident in a way that can't be denied. But you don't want to live your life in a state of denial until you're forced to make that reckoning, because some crisis has totally jolted you to the core and shaken you in a traumatic way. It's much better to just look at life through the lens of truth and understand it's not going to be what you want to see. But it's better to look in the mirror and see something you don't want to see than it is to not look in the mirror at all. I thought it was interesting, the statue of the Queen's Virtues is a statue which is right outside Buckingham Palace in the United Kingdom, and it's a tribute to the late Queen Victoria. And there's a number of different figures that have statues surrounding the great statue of the Queen there, and one of them is a statue representing truth. And that statue, this goddess representing the virtue of truth, is depicted as a woman holding a mirror. And I thought that was great. I liked that, because the truth is often, of all truths, not about looking outward into the world. It's not about going a long way off to discover something far away. It's about finding the courage to look in the mirror and to see the truth of yourself. I'm reminded also on the same general topic of King's Quest 4, I think it was. One of the King's Quest games. I think it was King's Quest 5, now that I think about it. But there was a scene where you went down into the underworld and you met the Lord of the Dead. And as the game went, in order to pass, you had to make him cry. And he said that he would allow you passage into the underworld as a living person if you could make him shed a tear, something which he didn't do. And the way to make him cry, turns out, was to hold up a mirror so that he could actually see the truth of what he had become. I always remembered that, and I thought it was a rather interesting testimony to a truth that is quite valuable to remember. That the greatest truths are not the truths without us, but rather the truths within us. It's always easy to see other people 20/20. It's easy to find other people to throw stones at. It's easy to criticize them. It's easy to see what their faults and their demons and all that are. What's hard is to look at yourself. But the more you do, the more you start to open up doors. And life starts to get better, because that's how you purge the toxin out of your life. By looking honestly in the mirror and seeing the truth. And when you know the truth, it doesn't mean that you know what to do about it. Sometimes you don't. But it's a start. It's that first step in the journey of 1,000 miles. And even if I can't tell you where it leads, I can say from experience that it generally leads to a better place than the alternative. So, no matter where you find yourself in life's adventure, challenge yourself to be more honest. Not with others so much as with yourself. And if you see something that isn't quite what you wanted to see, don't consider that to be a curse. Consider it a blessing, because most people don't find the courage to even look at all. Very best wishes to you. Till next time. Thank you for watching.